So quick context. I have been an event coordinator on the side for years. I never made it my day job because there would be diminishing returns by doing so. More pay, but way more stress. I do a couple a year, and that's usually enough to satisfy my itch and gives me some good crazy people stories, just as working in massage therapy has. You could say I'm a lucky gal. This wedding I planned was for a past friend from high school, and I knew his bride from high school as well. He was struggling to find someone in their budget and wasn't juggling 10 different weddings at once. They're nice people, and he's a war vet, and has one of the cutest sons I've ever seen. So I say yes, and discount my rate as their wedding gift. This is important. I asked my standard questions while trying to be delicate about any concerns of family or other guests becoming an issue during planning the wedding. I was assured no. I never interacted with the mother-in-law, groom's mom, until rehearsing. And during the entire planning process, I didn't get a whiff of any just no about her. No stories from groom, none from bride, no weirdos calling, emailing me trying to change my plans, etc. So let's just say I was a bit blindsided when 56 minutes into our hour-long rehearsal, groom's mom comes running. I mean full ducking sprint running. And this lady has never run a day in her life except to see if there's seconds. That's too mean. Oh, it's already written. Whoops. Throwing the door open in the loudest fashion and announcing to us through gasps of air. Heavy breathing. Wheeze, made it. Whew, I'm feeling a little lightheaded. Where can I sit down? While fanning herself and swaying while one of the groomsmen apathetically finds her a chair. Wedding was in a non-traditional venue. Remember that scene in Harry Potter where Quirrell comes running in to announce the troll in the dungeon? That. Except she's the troll. Sorry, troll, that's a hurtful comparison, but I gotta be honest. After she has gotten a chair in the middle of the doorway, water, and 10 full minutes have ticked by, I hate being late and equally loathe running over time, so she's officially on my crap list. She snaps her finger at me. Girl, yeah, wedding girl, when do I walk down? Well, I'm sorry you missed your portion of rehearsal. You'll be, oh, well, since I'm here, let's just run it again. And she springs to her feet, having magically recovered from her marathon run from the car parked in the disability slot outside. No, she's not disabled, and I checked to see if she had a placard or plate. She assured me later that since it was too late, it shouldn't have been a problem. She starts pulling things out of the bag we had just put away. This is where the bride and groom shoot me an uncomfortable look. The reservations for dinner start in 20, and it's a 15-minute drive from here, and we still have to close up. So I get to do my favorite thing and tell a B no, since at my day job the customer is always right. I walk over to her hunched over the bag and start refilling the items she has taken out. Well, as I said before, I'm sorry you missed your portion of rehearsal, but we can discuss your walking role over dinner. Rehearsal has been officially over for a few minutes now. Bag has been refilled, and at the moment her hands are off of it. I scoop it up. Cue CB face. But it should only take a few minutes. Which we certainly could have accommodated when you arrived, but those few minutes were allocated elsewhere. I was under the impression I was being professional and sly, but I overestimated my abilities here. Groom's mom narrowed her eyes and puffed indignantly. Well, excuse me, my blood sugar was low and I needed to eat. I sympathize. Waiting an hour between full meals is certainly trying, especially when we had some light snacks available, which everyone had been informed of. I learned later that she had gone to a certain religious chicken place that had just opened the day before and had lines as long as in and out. She waited there for 75 minutes for chicken. Well, luckily that brings us to the next point of why we are unable to run pre-rehearsal again. If we don't leave now, we will be late for the reservations, and we don't want them giving the table away. She was let out by her ex, groom's dad, and they exchanged some pretty heated words outside that we all pretended not to hear as we cleaned up. I called the restaurant to let them know we would be late and they were happy to hold the table. I tend to recommend this place for wedding parties in the area. It's one of the only non-chain restaurants around and it's really good. We all arrive about 10 or so minutes late. Guess who's nowhere to be found? She loftily strolls in right after we have all placed our orders. Groom and bride invited me as a token gesture and, hey, free food y'all. And all the bread has been eaten. Unfortunately for me, I sat at the very end to stay out of everyone's way and now the only place to sit groom's mom is next to me. Everyone's avoiding her eye contact, so I guess I get to break the bad news that we have already ordered. She made an incredible fuss, wailed a little through some fake tears that she was getting edged out by groom's stepmom and how dare she try to take her place, pleading to her son to take pity on the woman who had to get 10 stitches after birthing the size of his head. Everyone was so stunned and embarrassed that no one is making eye contact and I realize I need to step in. I've escorted a few dinner guests out of this place, usually due to inebriation, so the manager recognizes what I'm attempting to do and helps get her outside. I listened as she blathered on about her son being taken away from her, and that it's been so hard and she feels so isolated from the whole thing. I recognize an escalating emotional pattern in her, and I try to calm her down enough to send her home so she doesn't further cause a scene tonight, with mental notes to discuss with bride and groom how they wanted to handle her coming the following day. Look, I understand you're upset, but if you're really worried about him having a great wedding, then you need to cut this out. I'm sorry, but you need to go home and take a breather. Continuing hysterics in the parking lot is only making this worse for yourself. I think the idea she may not be invited the following day popped into her mind. Grabbing me by the shoulders through snot sobs, she begged me not to tell her son about her outburst. LOL, you was there watching it, lady, and that she's a very good person. I hope open the car door and wish her good night. Luckily, she never showed up the next day, and it was a perfect wedding. No, the wedding was a disaster. Let me know if you want part 2. Part 2 is up. Don't say I didn't warn y'all. Where we left off. Groom's mom had an epic meltdown at rehearsal dinner that resulted in her talking about the amount of stitches she got from birthing her son. Fork. Me escorting her out with the manager and having to calm her butt down long enough to get her to drive away. I was also incredibly sure bride and groom wanted to rescind the invite, and I was preparing strategies for them to do so, while also looking into some security options from my network I had built up. I go back into dinner, everyone finishes up as uneventfully as possible, and once dinner is over, I talk with bride and groom in a private area to discuss said strategies. I'm floored when they both tell me they weren't planning on uninviting her. Record scratch. Wop 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 wop. Bride. Weddings bring out the worst in people, and I mean it is the night before, so I understand her not handling everything perfectly. Oh, honey. Groom. I mean, she does have a point. We have been including dad and stepmom in the plans pretty heavily. And I don't blame her for feeling excluded. Oh, sweet boy. They start telling me about the divorce, and I guess it got super ugly on both dad and mom's side, and there's a lot of hurt feelings left, and the wedding has been a powder keg. From the sounds, the wounds are pretty fresh, and since she had been perfectly pleasant during wedding planning, they were willing to look past this. I asked them one last time if they were sure. Yes, they both said, what's the worst that could happen? Oh, sweet summer children, everyone knows you never utter those words. It opens up Pandora's chaos box like no one's business. Wedding day arrives, non-traditional venue needs to decorate, and I have to brag for a quick sec. The budget for the entire thing was $5,000, and I made a beautiful ducking wedding out of it. I called in a lot of favors and spent a lot of hours painting, sculpting, designing, and creating unique pieces to really make their day pop. Groom was severely injured in war, and a lot of their money went to supplemental health stuff they needed because the VA out here is one of the worst in our side of the country. We spent 3 hours building and putting up our creations, making it one of the best transformations of space I have ever accomplished. I'd post photos, but it's increasingly unique, and while bride and groom have told me I can blog about this, they didn't want anything identifying to be traced to them. Entire wedding party is chipping in with labor and decor, and while it's taking longer than expected because we are down, as some members of the wedding party has not shown. 3 guesses who? We are going to finish in the nick of time. 15 minutes before the wedding is seating guests. We have groom's mom and her husband in tow rocking sweats and eating fast food. Yes, it's more of the religious chicken. I sputtered a little when I saw her and took her off to the side before groom and bride saw her because oh my god, they do not need this drama today. Why on earth are you not dressed? Well, she says with a flourish, spraying her mouth full of food on me. Isn't it the bridesmaid's job to dress me? Apparently, she has only attended her own weddings, so she doesn't understand that, nah bruh, this is not the actual case. I explain as such. Indignation ensued, but where on earth am I to get dressed? The bathroom? Actually, that's a great call. I'm glad you were able to problem solve this for yourself. And I walked her in the direction of the smallest and smelliest bathroom at the venue. Whoops, and informed her if she's not ready by the time she needs to walk the flower girl down, I will be doing it my damn self. She realizes that I'm serious and is able to hustle her ass into some halfway decent shape. I say this because while the outfit is an improvement on her sweats, it's an all-gray floor-length gown that has a gray long-sleeve bolero. She is supposed to wear light blue, but it looks similar in the store. Sure, Jan, the office reference, not her name, I'm sure. Get her in position. Her bride's stuff ready, and I go to open the seating. Oddly enough, there's 5 guests outside waiting, but there's a lot of construction traffic. And hey, some people in the bridal party are running behind, so no biggie, right? 30 minutes go by, and there's a trickle of more people, of a wedding guest list of 150. I know something happened. You know that feeling when you just ducking no? Yeah, that. I march my ass up to groom's dad and tell him the deal. He sees red, goes and calls a couple of people that comes back to report what he found out. Groom's mom called people, almost the entire guest list, announcing that at dinner that night before it came out that groom is not son's father, and the wedding had been called off, and because there was a lot of vague booking about drama from the wedding party, a lot of guests believed them. A few knew that she was full of crap and came anyway, and the rest wasn't people she could reach. I asked groom's dad if he wanted to be the one to tell them, or me. He sighed sadly and said we could each take one of them. I talked to the bride with the venue manager to see if we could extend the rental time to call others. Venue decides to be totally crappy and explain they will not be able to accommodate this, and both bride and groom explain they will have another ceremony. Groom's dad said he would step up to pay later, and since they had paid so much out of pocket and people had shown to support, they would go on with the show. Everyone was too afraid to kick groom's mom out because they weren't sure what she would do. I strongly advised to do it anyway, and to call police if she caused issue. But we've gone through so much, so let's just salvage. We just won't have her in any pictures. Not the choice I'd make, but it is their day, and I'm here to make their day happen. Ceremony commenced with 35 people in attendance, including wedding party, myself, and the pastor. I cried a tear for them when no one was looking. After the ceremony, everyone goes downstairs for cocktail hour while bride and groom spend some time alone to recoup, and I flip the ceremony site for reception. That's not what our invoice is for. What? Okay, first, this caterer is a company that I have worked with before, and I have not enjoyed, but they were the company bride and groom wanted because of price. They have ducked up previous weddings, so at first I'm pretty sure that this is on them. I mean, it is. You all know where this crap is going. I look at invoice and it was changed 3 days prior. Okay, who ducking allows that much of a last-minute change to just a couple of appetizers? And when I say a couple, I mean there was 2 options and both of them were tiny-ass skewers. Everyone who arrived was told there would be a plated dinner and expected as such. There's nothing I can get done immediately. I got a nearly full refund after the fact because that is unprofessional crap they just did. They knew if it wasn't a change submitted by me or bride, then they were not allowed to change, and groom's mom didn't use a fake name. The company just blatantly ignored contract because they saved money. So I ordered Thai food, bride and groom's favorite, and pay out of pocket to feed the masses. I also picked Thai because groom's mom apparently detests spicy food. Guess she can snack on a salad skewer, B. So now it's time for dances, and groom specifically didn't want one to avoid drama. Well, his mom is ducking 5 sheets to the wind drunk, stumbles on the floor middle of bride's dance with her dad, who's dying of ducking cancer, to have a mental breakdown. I wish the next part was a joke or scene from a movie because it was incredibly damaging to a lot of parties, including her grandson. She continued the previous night tirade and started stripping her clothes off until she was in her slip, and went off about how her son was the closest man she's ever had, including the one who has been in the deepest. She paused for a second before she said, "Deepest in my heart." She also said she thinks the bride is a big old "see you next Tuesday," and how she hopes grandson isn't really her grandson, because she doesn't want bride's filthy ass to muddy his jeans. No racism involved, bride is white and everything, groom's mom is not, so I'm sure this was jealousy and projection. She ran around, which avoided getting stopped, until she threw a glass at her ex and popped off about how her life has been so horrible since he left her 12 years ago. Glass ended up hitting bride's father, who, again, is dying of cancer, so his cheek caved in and he was bleeding like a nightmare. I call cops and emergency services while a couple of groomsmen wrestle her to the ground. I'm first responders trained, went to school to be a nurse. Yes, I'm a multi-trick pony. Never finished school though. So I whip out my med bag and start initial first aid. We're in a rural area, so it took 15 minutes for the ambulance. As groom's mom gets carted out, she screams about no woman will love her son like she does and that he's made the worst mistake of his life. I'd agree in the sense that he let her stick around for all her crap. Venue tried to sue for damages against bride and groom, and luckily they got out unscathed legally. Police reports helped with this. Groom's dad filed restraining orders. All the legal stuff got sorted. Venue also tried to sue me for unprofessionalism allowing this to occur. This was also unsuccessful because I'm an expert documenter and it went nowhere. This whole thing capped off a really stressful and hard event year, so it was my nail in the wedding coffin. I will only do weddings for my future sister-in-law if she ever decides to get hitched, and my best friend. Beyond that, no, never again. I honestly can't risk it. So yeah, That is the worst mother-in-law I have ever encountered. Groom's son to this day still goes to therapy because Groom's mom said a lot of crap beyond what I reported that really ducked with him. The horrors of Dad's injury was brought up in graphic detail. But I guess kiddo is getting better. Groom's dad tipped me a bit for all my help, and I'm pretty close with everyone still.